Leader of Government Business.
Yes, Mr. President, I know it's but it's quite late, but I believe that I should make just a few brief remarks as we close this session on the appropriation bill. Um, in fact, I seem to have a reputation late at night to have the unfortunate task of living up to that reputation, but perhaps it's because I normally have a little nap at about 10 and I get up at 11 and work sometimes till about 2. So I'm kind of refreshed at this time. But I would be brief. Mr. President, I believe that we've covered much of the ground in terms of our rebuttal, but there are a few points I want to make very quickly, because the opposition has, throughout this debate, given to the record of this House what I would call a shopping list, and also the independent senators. In fact, I almost felt as if they went to town as children with their parents and were given their parents' open wallet to shop. And I wondered if, as children, they were really being able to shop with an open wallet, or they were just fantasizing. The point, Mr. President, is this, that we can look throughout the breadth and length of St. Lucia and find every single problem that needs to be remedied, and come here and say, in this budget we should have done it. This is what it sounds like. But we can't. We have to prioritize as a government. We have to decide based upon the fiscal realities and the resources, human and capital resources that we have. What can we do and how should we prioritize? And therefore, if we have to judge what we have before us today, that judgment cannot be simply based on a shopping list, a long and unending shopping list, but it has to be based upon how you assess the priorities and what you assess to be the resources that we have to deal with those priorities. And I think if you do so, Mr. President, you'd see that this, in fact, has been well put together by the government, because we have assessed it based upon a number of factors, based upon driving the economy forward, as I said in my earlier presentation, based upon ensuring that we have a safety net for the citizens of St. Lucia, based upon seeing where we position this country for its future development. So, Mr. President, I would say that if you look at these factors, we have done a remarkable amount with a little bit of resources, and having to go through the process of continuing with some restraint in terms of our capacity to spend. Mr. President, I just want to touch on the issue of interest payments, which was raised, that the government seemed to be paying quite a bit on interest payments. But Mr. President, this is just a factor in terms of the amount of money that you borrow. If you borrow, you have to pay interest on what you have borrowed. And in fact, Mr. President, if we look at the 2010 economic review at page 36, in that review, and under the last government, interest payments on domestic borrowing grew by 22.3% to $56.5 million at the time. So this is not an unusual factor. If you borrow, you have to pay interest on what you borrow. So I think it's unrealistic for the suggestion to be left on this record that somehow our interest payments are huge in relation to the amount of money that we have borrowed and the amount of money that we have to pay back. I would also just like to quickly make the point, Mr. President, that in relation to our In relation to the project on the Castries Grosile Road, the suggestion has been made that we were putting in a huge amount of money into that project, and somehow that huge amount of capital expenditure was unacceptable. But again, Mr. President, I just want to refer to the 2010 economic report, where capital expenditure at the time overall increased by 17.5% to $283.4 million. And of course, if I would just quote, Mr. President, in that report at page 37, spending was concentrated on a few major infrastructural projects as well as outlays associated with Hurricane Thomas rehabilitation and reconstruction works. So it's not unusual to see that you have some projects, capital projects that may take a large chunk of your money, again depending upon what the government of the day may be deciding as its priorities based upon everything that it needs to do. I would also say, Mr. President, that the government is not just reactive, but proactive in what it seeks to do. And again, I would invite you to consider that in this fiscal year, there is attention given to the proposed vulnerability reduction project and climate adaptation financing facility and the programs for risk reduction and adaptation at pages 43 to 44. Just to make the point that we are proactive on some of these issues. It's not just a matter of reacting, but we are trying to look forward and ensure that we give the necessary protections where those should be given. So, Mr. President, I just want to say in rounding up the following. This government is very clear that we are on the right course. We are on the right course, and all the indicators give this message to us. The fact that we have high unemployment, that has to be seen in the context of where that unemployment was, where it is presently, and we clearly see that the government is holding the ground, and we see that the acceleration has decreased and things are beginning to level out. It is also important to note that the key sector, tourism, is showing substantial improvements at this stage, and those improvements are not just in one subsector of the tourism sector, but we see it almost across the board panning out. And that gives us a worthwhile indicator that things are looking up for the country. I should also say, Mr. President, that we see now, which is always a good reflection of your economy, that investors are now beginning to come into St. Lucia in larger numbers and are now willing to be more serious about the investment that they are making. And this we see within the last few months. And that is always a good and a very sound indicator, because investors will not spend money in a country if they feel that the economy is not in a right place. They will not spend money if they feel that there's a heightened risk to losing the resources that they invest. So all of these indicators point to the fact that we believe that we are on, we not only believe, but we are sure that we are on the right course, and things will only get better from this point on. But let me say that the entire country has to be part of this process. All of us have to be part of this process. Whatever the opposition may think, whatever the labor unions may think about the government, everyone has to be part of this process to build the country. And therefore, in urging support for this appropriation bill, I would invite everyone to make an ongoing commitment to ensuring that St. Lucia continues to develop on this path of success. Finally, Mr. President, I have already done some thanking of my ministry, but I will just quickly say that I am grateful for all of the efforts of my ministry and all of its departments. In particular, I have not had an opportunity to point to some of the things happening at the Borderlay facility, but we are now doing some very important changes in the overall management there. We are seeing some good things happening. When we speak of good governance, we are beginning to see a heightened movement to ensure good governance at that facility. And I would certainly want to, in this presentation, go on the record to say my appreciation to the new Director, Mr. Berngard, and to his team for the tremendous work that they have done in a very, very short time frame. We are looking now to have an expansion to our programs for rehabilitation. The farm now is really up and running in a way that it needs to run. He has, in a short time, started, for example, to look at initiatives such as a pocketbook initiative where police pocketbooks can be made not just for this facility, but potentially for the police and other agencies, and that is all happening within a very short space of time. So I am heartened by what I see there. We continue to see very good work coming from our Royal St. Lucia Police Force, notwithstanding the problems we have had over the last few years. And I keep saying all the time when I speak about the Royal St. Lucia Police Force that we have a good and sound cadre of police officers who are fully committed and who are honest, hardworking, and dedicated. To our fire officers, we've not said much about them, but they too, remember that they cover the part of the health service in terms of the ambulance service, and they have done a lot with limited resources as well. So we compliment them. And so to all of these officers and to both of my permanent secretaries and the staff of all of the two ministries, I say thank you. To the Senate, fellow senators, of course, it's always good. I don't know if Senator Joseph is giving us an indication that he intends to leave the Senate. I rather suspect there's something in there because, you know, he sounded very much like he and Senator Daniel as though they had started their campaign in the Senate today. So I'm wondering if there might be something in there that he may be leaving to go and do other things. But be that as it may, it has been a good session. It has been good going, yes, and I think that I would like to express my gratitude and to you, Mr. President, for your ever gracious patience and direction that you give to all of us. I think I've always thought that I just can't understand why you have not completed or done the law program, because I thought that you would have done exceedingly well at that. And of course, it's not too late.
He's a better lawyer.
Yes, he is. He is actually has a better legal mind than many. And to the staff of Parliament and, of course, GIS and the police officers who have worked here, a special thanks to you. Thank you.